On this episode, we'll be changing the oil and putting a freshly painted cam cover back on my XJ40 Daimler. Welcome back to Living with a Classic, and if you're new to my channel, I hope you stick around and consider subscribing. I put in videos every week on some Jaguar and classic car related content like this 1991 Daimler XJ40. If you're new to my channel and you haven't seen the previous videos on this car, I'll put a link to them down below. You can see where I picked up the car, and we've gone through all the faults I found on it and my plans for it, and then the first part of the major service. This is the second part. We'll be changing the oil. I've also have the cam cover off to paint it because it's a little bit flaky in some places. So now that looks really nice. You'll see that later on in the video. Also to replace the leaking cam cover gasket. While replacing those, I got these sent to me. If you're familiar with old Jags, you know, the XK engine, the V12, and the AJ6 engine, in the back of the head where the cam cover goes on, there's these half-moon seals, often in type of rubber, and over time that rubber gets hard and tends to leak over there. But a good friend of the channel, Jonas, has made these. I'm not sure how well it's showing up on camera, but you can see the cool Jaguar logo on them. They're basically exact copies of the half-moon seals, just made in aluminum. And not only are they very, very pretty, they look great, and they definitely should not leak if we install them correctly. So we're going to put some RTV over here on them and put them on into the head, and there should be no more leaks back then for many, many years to come. If you want to get your hands on a set of these, he does make them and sell them. I put a link to his contact information down below, so you can check out these and also contact him for other things. He makes lots of cool custom things for these old Jags, mostly for the XJS and mostly for the V12, but these fit on the AJ6 engine as well, and they fit on the XK engine also. So if you're interested in one of those, check them out down below. Also, if you have an older V12 with the auxiliary air valve and it's not really working, I've already made a video before on one that he's restored for me and what a difference it's made to the running of my car. So I'll put a link to that down below as well, so you can check out that video. So if your AAV is not working, send it off to Jonas and he will fix it for you in no time at all. So today's oil I'm using will be, for this AJ6 engine, will be Castrol GTX 15W40. Summer here is pretty warm, so this will be a good thick oil for the summer. Also, I really do like Castrol GTX in an engine that's a little bit dirty inside. This one, there's not that much sludge in it, but it's a little bit dirty inside because GTX, it does help to prevent sludge a lot. And I mean, I'm not sponsored by any oil company or anything, but a few years ago, Castrol made a campaign with the, I think it's the private person who's driven the most amount of miles in a car by himself. Sadly, he's passed away now. His name was Irv Gordon, and he had a, I don't know exact date, if it was like a 62 or a 64 or a 66, but it was a 1960s Volvo P1800 that I think at the time when they made that commercial, he'd driven over 3 million miles in that car. And I think when he passed away, he was close to, was it 3.5 or 4 million miles? I mean, he drove a lot. He drove everywhere. And during that whole time, the car had one rebuild at somewhere pretty early on in his life. They basically just opened up and had a look at the engine and saw nothing wrong with it, and you know, put it back together. And during the whole time, he'd run the car on Castrol GTX. So during that whole commercial thing, they took the engine apart, they sent it to a lab in the UK, and they had a look at it, and they found basically no wear on that engine at all, even after all those miles. So I think that's really cool. And well, I want to get this car to be a really nice high mileage car and have it for many years. So I'm going to try this oil out, and hopefully it runs really nice on it. So let's head over to the car. We'll drain out the old oil, put back some of the parts we took off in the last video, and then you're going to see the nicely painted cam cover again on the car. So here we are under the Daimler. It's up safely on jack stands. It's time to drain the oil. And it's an AJ6 engine, so the drain plug is back here. It's a big 30mm one. Let's see if I can. It's a really big plug, so it really does come out very quickly out of these engines. It's a lot blacker and darker than I like my oil to be. I like to change my oil pretty often, but it doesn't look too bad. I didn't see any weird clumps or anything come out. The oil level was correct in the engine. And I actually don't think it's been that many miles on it. I think it's been sitting and done a lot of short driving. But while we let that drain, let's just have a quick look underneath here. See if I can maybe move this light around. Have a look under here. And I haven't seen any real leaks or anything. There is that one leak up there in the front with the self-leveling rear suspension pump. But I'm going to remove all that in a future video. So I'll show you how you can remove basically the whole system. And hopefully, with that removed, that shouldn't be any more leaks. But, the underside of the sump looks really nice and clean. I don't see any oil hanging or dripping anywhere. And, even the underside of the transmission, there's some surface rust on that pan. So, there's definitely no leaks under there. And the rest of the car back here, if I turn this light around, so you can see just great undercoating everywhere. No real leaks, nothing. Some surface rust on the exhaust, but it's not leaking yet at the moment, but maybe it has to be replaced in the future, maybe some parts of it, but so far everything looks to be in really great shape. While the oil is draining, I cleaned up the oil fill pipe that I removed in the last video. So now I'm going to try and get this back in place, snake it down through here, down into the bottom over there. It's kind of hard to see, but right down there is where it goes. And then there are two hoses that connects to it. This one that goes underneath here connects to the bottom. Then there's another one on top that goes here into Y over here as well. So I'm going to try and get all that back together. Then before I put the drain plug in, I'm going to pour a little bit, maybe half a quart or half a liter or so of fresh oil down here just to, clear everything out. Get the last old oil out of the sump. Then we'll put the plug back in, put the car back on the ground, and then I'm going to put the cam cover back on that's been painted and polished, looking really nice, with a new gasket. We can fill up with new oil, and then that part of service is done. I grabbed an extra flashlight to try and show you where the oil fill pipe goes into the engine. So you see where my finger's pointing right there, and there's like a metal housing that's stuck on there, and then there's a big rubber grommet in there. The black thing you see up there is the pipe that's almost in all the way. So now I'm going to try and push it in into that grommet, and there we go, that's in place. Just need to put a bolt up there. Now if you look down there, it's all the way in the bottom there, and I'm sorry, it's really the best I can show you. There's a lot of stuff in the way, it's pretty tight, but it just slips into there. Then there's a hose that connects here, another hose under there that you just need to feel through with your hands. The other end of this hose, that bolt up there, and then it's all back in place. So I'm going to put that back in place now. And then we can move on to the cam cover gasket and the cam cover. And one thing I forgot to mention, see that little white thing down there? We're of course going to change out the oil filter as well. For those of you wondering how I'm cleaning out the inside of the hoses, there's no real science to it. This is all the gunk that came out of that pipe and the other hose. So I just put in here. I have some degreaser, just spray degreaser in here. I'm just, spraying the insides of it. Pulling and pour out. Then it's a lot easier when you have two hands, but you turn around, do the other side. So I'm just going to run a paper towel through it, clean it all through, let it dry off. Then I can put it back on the car, and then it won't be perfect, but it'll be a lot cleaner and a lot nicer than it was before. Now all the hoses are back in place. I just need to put this one back into the cam cover later, but the other end of that's all the way under here. It's pretty difficult to get back in place. You just need to feel your way with your hands under here. And then I took a little 6mm socket and some extensions and a ratchet on the hose clamp to be able to tighten it down there. And finally got it tightened. But just, it's kind of fiddly, but it was very nice to be able to take this out and clean it out. Now to clean out the last of what's left in the sump, I still have the sump plug off, and I still have a drain pan underneath the car. So I'm just going to pour in, like I said, about half a liter or about half a quart of new oil in the engine, and just let that run through out through the bottom and get any of the last old oil out. And like I mentioned before, I'm using Castrol GTX 15W40, which I think should be great for this engine. So I'm going to let that drain out. When that's all drained, I'll put the plug back in. Then I'm going to move my drain pan or get another one, get into the car and get the oil filter out. Like most Jaguars of this time, it uses the EBC 9658 Jaguar filter. I always like to use original Jaguar filters whenever I can on these cars. And whenever possible, I like to pre-fill them. It's a lot easier on the V12, it's going to go straight up, but on these AJ6 engines, it goes on the side, just like the XK engine, so you can fill it about halfway without making too much of a mess. So I'll fill up halfway. What's also nice is, you have instructions here, because the one thing you don't want to do, of course, is over-tighten one of these. There's no need to do it, and it will be a pain for the next person to get off. So just make sure it makes contact, then a half to 3/4 of a turn after initial contact, and that's it, and to oil the gasket. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to pre-fill it just a little bit and put some oil on that gasket. That's enough. About as much as you can get in without making a huge mess. Spread a thin coat of oil on that gasket. Then I'll just get under the car, put this in place, but I'm not going to show it on video because I've already made a detailed video on changing oil on the AJ6 engine, so I'll put a link to that up above and down below so you can check that out. So I'll put this in place, then I'll put the car back on the ground, and then we can put the valve cover back on. I'll just put in those nice aluminum half moon seals here. One over there, one there. You see some red ATV on them, so there should be no leaks. And this is what the old ones look like. So they're, supposed to be soft rubber originally. Now they're really hard and brittle, so they usually leak. These weren't leaking actually, but they usually do. So it'll be really cool to test out these new ones, and they should not leak at all. The only thing I wish you could see the back of the engine so you could see those nice logos, but I think they look really nice anyways. So now I'm ready to put the new cam cover gasket on, and the 6 little gaskets around here around the spark plugs. So I have a new cam cover gasket on and these new seals for the spark plugs. One left to put in. The gasket just pushes into place. It has, like a U on the inside. Pushes into place all the way around. I'm not going to put any sealant on this because I think it's going to seal really well without. Also in that case I can easily take it off and reuse it. And then there's these little grommets or seals around these spark plug wells. They just push into place. So now all that's in place and I can just lay this on top of the engine. And that just slides into place. Now the grommets fell out. I'm just going to start putting in all the bolts around. Tighten them a little bit by hand first, and then just tighten them from the inside out. And now the last thing to do is to hook up this breather hose again. And now to fill it up with about 8 liters of fresh oil. Alright, it's all filled up to the max mark on the dipstick. Normally now you'd start up the engine, check for leaks, turn it off, and fill it up again because the oil filter will get filled with oil. But as you can see, I still have some ignition components I need to put back on, and I do have some other service work I'm going to do, but that will be in the next video. But doesn't this cam cover just look a lot nicer than the old one? And in no way I'm missing a sticker. I have to order one up so I get the correct sticker on there, the Daimler 4.0. But that looks a lot nicer. I mean, this is not going to be a show car in any way, but now I think I'm going to have to take this off later and paint it off as well and polish this up and just, make it at least look a little nicer because, the cam cover is the nicest part of the engine, but it's what you see when you open up and I think it looks very nice. It was a shame not to paint it when I had it off. If you want to know how I like to paint and polish these things, I've already made a video of that, so I'll put a link to it down below so you can check that out. I'll also try and put a link up above as well. And that's it for this video. Now we have nice clean oil in that engine and no more oil leaks hopefully. So I'm not going to run a full length before the next oil change. I'm going to probably run about half the amount of miles for the normal oil change. Then, pour this out, put fresh oil in again, and then if everything looks nice, I'll probably be back on just a normal oil change interval. But I like that engine to be nice and clean inside. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys think it'd be fun if there may be a year or so if we take the cam cover off and see if it's cleaner inside than it was before with this GTX, since it's supposed to clean the inside of your engine. So let me know in the comments down below if you think that would be something fun to do. So the next thing that's coming up on this car is to change the next filter, which is the air filter. Go through the inlet side to make sure everything is clean there. Have a look at the throttle body. They usually get pretty gummed up with oil residue and stuff, so clean that up. Make sure everything is properly adjusted, because the PCV was a little dirty on this car, so I think we'll have to clean out all of that just to make sure it's as it should be so the engine runs right. But that will be coming up in the next video. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps out a lot. And until next time, I'm Adam, and this was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.